Man, oh man, what a year it has been for comic book values in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this one, we got ourselves the final update for the comic book index for the year 2024. That is right, we now have our December numbers to take a look at, and we have to ask ourselves a question. Did we turn the corner here at the end of the year? Was this an up month for comic books? Are we about to rip into 2025? I don't know. I'm not so sure. But it is interesting because now that we have perspective on the entire calendar year, we can start to compare it to other years that we've had recently, like 2022 and 2023, and see if that can give us any indication of where we might be going in the future. But of course, before I get into that, if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, I appreciate it. Helps support the channel doing those things. But let us get into this video here today. Now, the comic book index, what is it? Well, you guys know by now, but it is the top 100 bought and sold comics per age, silver, bronze, and copper. I pick the highest volume of grade. That's the one that I focus on and count. I take the final sale of each month, aka simulating a market close, and I get all of my info from GPA data. So suffice to say, if you were going to buy the top 100 most in-demand, most sought-after books within each age, how much would it cost you to do so on a month-by-month basis? Well, last month, in November, it would have cost you $38,087 to buy all those wonderful Silver Age keys, a little bit higher than some of the prior months, but still, the third lowest value we had seen in the entire calendar year. And for the most part, ever since that of January, we've been kind of trending down. Although if you want to hyper focus in on the last few months, perhaps we were trending upwards. Well, where do we go here in the month of December? Well, we actually went up again to 39,528. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Do we think that August or September was the bottom, going down to 36,000? Because if it was, well, all of a sudden we're kind of on the upswing. But then again, if you kind of back out, and look all the way back to 2021, there's nothing to suggest that the trend isn't still going down, but it does feel like we're kind of resisting, bouncing against those 2020 values. We've gotten the COVID froth for the most part out of the index, but we're still kind of elevated above levels, pre-COVID, at least for the time being. So kind of where do we go in the future? It's really, up to you to decide, but we're not going to break that all down right now. We're going to save that for later on in the video. For now, we got to move on to the Bronze Age Index. Now, last month in November, we were at $29,564, which was effectively, a push from the prior month. Maybe we lost $100 or so, so not too big of a deal. I always say that bronze is a little bit more accurate in terms of, the consistency of values, because these are, books that are more common, they sell more frequently. So, to me, bronze is always the better indication of where we are on the comic book market. And as you guys can see from the graph, it's just been a steady and slow decline. Well, where do we go here to finish out the calendar year? Well, we went to 29,533. So, I'm going to call this one another little bit of a push. We did lose like $100 or so, but there's margin of error in a lot of these numbers and crunching and stuff. So last couple months, while it has been on a slight decline, it's kind of been in push territory. So maybe that says something, I don't know. I'm just kind of calling it like it is. I'm not making any predictions, I'm not saying anything. I'm just showing you guys one point of data, and again, a non-perfect system of me doing the comic book index. All right, well, let's take a look now and finish it out. Zooming in here on the Copper Age Index in November, we were at 22,399. We kind of had an anomalous month, dropping down to 20,576. Missed a few big key sales in that month, but for the most part, similar to bronze, copper has been kind of going sideways, if not slightly down on its sideways movement. Well, where do we go here in the month of December? Well, we kind of continued that trend, 21,602, losing a little bit of value, still kind of going within the range of sideways, but enough to say that it was generally a down month for that of December. Well, there you guys see the side-by-side graphs, a little bit of an up month for silver, a little bit of a push for bronze, a little bit of a down month for copper. So, when you kind of average it out, it's like a slight downish month for all the indexes, as we would come to expect. Now, before I kind of really dive in and talk about some interesting takeaways, and we're going to do some of the year-to-date returns, which I think is the most interesting thing to break down here in the end of 2024. Let me quickly just give you guys the numbers and the key takeaways here. For silver, in November, we are at $38,087, up to $39,528 in December, which is an increase of 4%. For Bronze Age, in November, we are $29,564 to December $29,533, a literal decrease of $31. I think we can call that a push. And then for Copper Age, we went to $21,602. That is a decrease of 3%. Now, the key takeaways here: silver book values, 13% of the books were down, 16% of them were up, 34% still nobody buying. Non-sale factor is still an element for silver book values. But overall, as a month, I mean, that's pretty average. That's pretty consistent with a lot of other months we've seen where, a handful are down, a handful are up, and then there's a bunch that nobody bought that particular month. For bronze book values, 13% down, 12% up, 13% non-sale. Again, another kind of typical month that we've been seeing for this index. But now that we're at the end of the year, let's take a look at the year-to-date returns. I think that this is pretty interesting to kind of analyze and have this be maybe an indication for us moving forward. For silver values in 2022, if we're just to take, what it cost us to buy all the books in January and then what it cost us to buy all the books in December, for that calendar year, the index went down 40%. Pretty crazy how big of a drop that was. 2023, kind of similar for silver values. January purchases to December purchases, year-to-date returns, minus 30%. But then here in 2024, January purchases to December purchases, only minus 15%. So, kind of slowing down the rate of loss, which I think is maybe the most bullish thing you can kind of consider for comic books. That, if you're somebody out there who really wants to buy a key, you really want to add Fantastic 448 to your collection. I mean, buying it this year for fair market value was definitely better than buying it in 2023 for fair market value, and certainly buying it better than 2022 for fair market value. You know what I mean? Bronze values, a similar kind of rate of drop here, where 2022 it was down 40%, 2023 only down 20%. Silver Age can be a lot more swingy with the way that I do these calculations. And, again, this is not a perfect system. It's just one point of data. But, either way, for both indexes, the drop was less than that of 2022. And then 2024, similar again, bronze book values, 15% drop. So, it sort of begs the question going here into 2025, if we're seeing that the rate of dropping is less and less each year, I mean, I think we can assume that 2025 might be even less. I mean, the rate of dropping has been halving each year, so maybe in 2025 it only goes down 7% or something like that, But I think that the macro trend still shows that it's going down, but overall, maybe the change won't be as significant. As we zoom now into the month-by-month chart, again, we are the purple line of 2024, and you guys can see, from January where it was down to December where it finished, we kind of went sideways. But, in value terms, that was a drop of 15%. Compare that to the cyan line of 2023, where you can see where January started and then where we went into December. That overall was a drop of 30%. And then you compare that to the orange line, where we started in January and then went to December, and that was a drop of 40%. So I would just guess, based on this trend, that in 2025, when I invent a new color, let's call it pink, I think I just decided, guys, it's going to be pink. Pink, in January in 2025 to where we go in December of 2025 will probably be another sideways line that goes across, that probably slashes through the purple line and, has a rate drop of 7%. Something like that. That would be my guess. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, can't see into the future. And what are we talking about here, swag? Comic books are going to zero. But even with all that, it is still interesting to compare these lines against the yellow line, which again was 2020, before we got the comic book boom. Again, we've pulled all the froth for the most part out of, comic book values. I mean, assuming that you are buying these books at fair market value and you are somebody who is buying graded comic books. Again, for me, I always say I like to buy raw books at discount and then get it graded myself. Like, I don't really chase buying graded comic books unless that's my only option. You know, if you have to buy a Golden Age comic book or a super obscure, rare Copper Age, you know, Mark Jeweler thing where you only have to get it in, you know, graded form, like those types of books, like you can do that. But I myself don't do that. But if you are somebody who behaves that way, I mean, you know, the values are still sticky enough to where they are currently still above the pre-comic book boom of 2020. And I assume that will continue to be the case because, you know, the people who joined the hobby in, you know, the COVID boom and came here for the money and came here for the quick flips and all of that stuff, even if they have churned, you know, the people that were here before the COVID boom are still probably here collecting. So that was kind of the natural value, and I put natural in quotations right there. You know, there's no real natural values for comic books, but we can assume just by volume of people in the hobby that were in it before the boom are probably still here. And they were willing to pay those prices that they were paying in 2020. So I assume that they're still willing to pay those prices here in 2024 and going on into 2025. All right, let's finish it out here by showing you guys the trend lines. Again, this is not drawn to scale, but it gives you guys a little bit of a snapshot. And again, the trend line is only a trend line until it's not a trend line anymore. I mean, if everything literally goes to zero tomorrow, then we're gonna have to draw a new trend line overall. But for the most part, you know, currently where we are in terms of the silver values and the bronze values, I mean, we're kind of right in line to the trend. You know, the general sort of comic book rate of inflation that is kind of keeping it afloat. Now, is it actually outpacing inflation? Is it actually something that is quote unquote good to invest in? I mean, I think it depends on your outlook. For the most part, I would say that a lot of the common keys that are Bronze Age books and Silver Age books definitely are not good investments in that sort of way, meaning that you're going to buy it for fair market value and sit on it and you're going to outpace the S&P 500. No, that's not how comic books work. But if you're somebody out there who is, you know, at a garage sale and you find yourself an AF-15 being sold for $20, I mean, that's going to be the best $20 investment you could have ever possibly made for yourself. I guarantee it. Which brings us to the bear and bull case. There you guys have it, 2024. That was the comic book index wrap up on the year. How do we feel? What do we think about comic book values and where we're going into 2025? You know, I think the bullish sign is that the rate of dropping has definitely slowed down, and I expect it to continue to slow down, but that doesn't still mean that the values can't continue to go down, if that makes sense. I'm somebody who generally thinks that, you know, comic books probably will have a bounce back in terms of, you know, their popularity at some point in the future. I mean, again, if it's just my honest opinion, of course, at some point, the floppy is going to die. Of course, at some point, comic books are going to zero. I'm always being a little bit flippant with that. But the real ultimate question is, how long do we actually have? I mean, are we talking about like next year is the last year that comic books are going to have any values? I mean, it's possible. I don't think that that's very likely. Are we talking about, you know, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now? It's really impossible to know. I mean, I'm going to guess that we have at least 15 years of people still caring about this stuff. And yeah, in 100 years, maybe it's all worthless. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of my outlook. But that doesn't really mean anything. You know, it's sort of like, yeah, 15 years is still a long time. That's still a long time of people flipping books to each other, you know, in our old folks' retirement homes. You know, people will still care about this stuff. But of course, I'm only saying that because, Swag, you're a dirty flipper dealer who just wants to sell your bags to other comic book collectors. To which I respond, that would be a good idea if I was actually a comic book dealer. That would actually be really, really smart. Probably should do that, but I'm not. Because I just don't want to do it. I'm trying to write comic books, guys, okay? I got to work on sanity right now. Anyways, let's hop over to the GoCollect comic book index just to compare notes here. I have it sorted by the past month. We can quickly see that apparently to them, Modern Age is up, although I don't really understand how, you know, here it's 39.64 and then down here it's 39.27. What the, get out of here. 39.64 to 39.27, and then here in the Copper Age it's 8.69 to 8.63, so it shows down, but it shows push. And then Bronze Age here it shows down, although 11.22 to 11.24, that looks up to me. I'm gonna assume that the graph is wrong and the number is right. So Bronze is down, Silver is down, Copper Age is a push, Modern is up, Gold is up, and Big Spenders Club, pump, 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 baby, comic books going to the moon overall. You know, I do have to say, I think that this is maybe an interesting video that we can do sort of later on. I want to really talk about Bronze and Silver. I think that of the comic books and values and stuff, I think bronze and silver is actually the stuff that is maybe in the most trouble. In a lot of ways, I think modern age books are actually a little safer, dare I say. I mean, I don't fully mean that, but at the same time, there's something to discuss there. And I'm not going to get into it in this video, but I would give you guys my thesis later on, but we'll save that for some other time. Anyways, that's all right for this video. That was me going over the comic book index in 2024. Thank you guys for watching the series. I hope this brings value to you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy this thing. I will continue to do it, at least for the time being, but I've made mention in prior index videos that I need to kind of revamp my formula and maybe cycle out some of the books. I think that this is probably a good time to do that, but it's a ton of work. And, doing these numbers takes a lot of time. And, I just have to turn on some really, really good podcasts and stuff to really zone in. Anyways, that's all for this one. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about comics in 2024? In terms of the values, how things did. What do you guys think we're going to be doing in 2025? Let me know down in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. See you on the next one.